The Nile Valley Movement was born out of a concern of my own, because of my own unique cultural background. It was born out of a concern of maintaining and perpetuating, advancing, and preserving a Black image of Nile Valley civilization, not limited to, but particularly ancient Egypt. And so initially it was basically just designed to advance media that would do that, because we don't often see, actually virtually never do we see that authentic Black image of ancient Egypt. It unfortunately is, to use a colloquial term, it's whitewashed in media. And so what you get is a false image of what ancient Egypt would have actually looked like from a demographic perspective.
So ancient Egypt,
Yes.
was it American Black or just dark-skinned people?
They were Africans. They were Black Africans, the same people that American Blacks descend from.
And what is your proof that American Blacks descended from ancient Egypt or
Well,
Egyptian?
the claim is not that American Blacks descend from ancient Egypt. The claim is that, or the fact actually is that ancient Egypt was an African civilization, and it was no less African than any other African civilization that would have existed in antiquity in Africa, whether it was West Africa, East Africa, or South Africa. The way we see Africa today, those were not the demographics in Africa in ancient times. And so the claim is not that African Americans descend from ancient Egypt, but if you need that connection, if you need a Nile Valley connection to West Africans, then I would suggest that you brush up on the migratory history of ancient Africa. People often think of Africa or ancient Africans as being very static, all localized in one place, without taking into account the documentation that clearly establishes that there were Nile Valley migrations to West Africa, particularly after the Roman incursion into North Africa. Many of the Blacks in North Africa left North Africa and they migrated into the inner body of Africa. And that includes West Africa, not just West Africa, but unfortunately, the way people are miseducated today, they're under the false impression that the Sahara was empty and that the only people in the Sahara were light-skinned, miscegenated North Africans, and that's false. If you ever want to, I would just suggest that you Google the term Kanem Bornu, Kanem, Kanem Bornu, Bornu, the Kanem Bornu state. It was a Black African civilization, and it basically comprised all of the Sahara from the north to the south of it and was directly adjacent to Egypt. If you spit in Kanem Bornu, it would land in Egypt. So what people tend to do through modern Western politics, to give it a nice name, they create this imaginary boundary and they use these imaginary Eurocentric terms like sub-Saharan Africa. And these are very modern ideas. They don't apply to antiquity or ancient Africa. So not only were there successive migrations from Egypt into the inner body of Africa that eventually culminated in a West African locale, but they actually know the roots. They literally know the roots and the stopping points that they took. And these are documented.
Who knows this?
Who knows this?
Yeah.
People who study history, people who study migratory history of ancient, of various continents, but particularly Africa. So if you study, I'll give you, if you want a text to read, a good book.
Yeah, give me a short, because this is so much it's making my hair hurt.
Okay, no problem.
And I'm black and slow, so I totally don't understand any of what you just said.
Don't worry about it. I'm black and 3 times as slow. So, that's why I told a friend of mine the other day, I was like, oh, hell yeah, I could definitely learn from Jesse Peterson. I learn from anyone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So the text to read is a book called Exiled Egyptians, Heart of Africa. Now, the key thing that you need to know about this book, where it talks about these migrations, and it's not the only text, but it happens to be my favorite text that highlights these migrations. The thing that's important to remember about that text is that it's not written by a Black person. So it's not a Black person that's cheerleading migrations out of the Nile Valley into West Africa. It's actually written by a modern Egyptian national by the name of Mustafa Gadala, who graduated from Cairo University, born and raised in Egypt. So this is not ethnic cheerleading or some imaginary ethnic cheerleading being promulgated by African Americans. So this is literally from a modern Egyptian national who is promulgating this. And then you have other people who are born and raised in Egypt that also have written literature. Robert Bouval is another one.
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
Let me ask you this. Black people in America, at least, don't normally read. They don't research. They're just, and not all, but most, right? They are followers and not individuals. And so they don't research for themselves. Knowing all what you just said,
yes.
How you expect to get that information into them when they don't even care about that kind of stuff? Because it's so much, and they're definitely not going to read, unless you put it on TV and make it a comedy or something, they're not gonna even pay attention to it. So Black people don't read all that. They don't feel like even thinking about that. How you expect to help them when they don't care? They don't research.
Okay, so what I try to do is I try my best to not cater to or subscribe to tropes. I think
you said tropes.
Tropes, caricatures of people that stereotype, right? And I think because when we do that, we're missing an opportunity to actually accomplish what you just finished talking about, which is getting the information to the people. A large part of it has to do with there's so many things. It's a very there are very complex reasons why Black people are the way that they are, or the way that we are. I try to be careful with my pronouns, you know. Yeah, I really do. So because people be like, "Why are you talking about they? You're one of us," and I am.
Know, so I hear that a lot.
I'm conscious of, yeah, but you know something? And
they want you to be a part of the mess.
Well, you know what? We are a part of the mess, and I think that
I'm not a part of the mess. I used to be a part.
Actually, no, you are a part of the mess. I'm going to share something with you. By separating ourselves, what we end up doing is we end up taking an elitist attitude towards our own people.
But that's not how I think, though. I just think the Blacks are messed up because they're so brainwashed and demoralized and brainwashed and government control, people control. They just don't know what they're doing. And at one time, I believed in the lies from the Civil Rights Movement, so-called civil. And so I know what it is to be brainwashed like that, but I overcame it. And most Black people would never overcome it.
I don't know.
So that's why I don't know how you're going to help them with all this information, man.
I don't know. I sometimes wonder what kind of company you keep and where you go, because the majority of the Black people that I know, believe it or not, they are extremely educated. Extremely. They're neurosurgeons.
But they are dumber than the non-educated people.
The educated Black people that you're talking about?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that they were dumber than the non-educated Black people. I would say that they have their own particular set of issues and challenges. But then everyone does. I mean, there are as many white people who are messed up as there are Black people.
You think so?
No question about it. In fact, there are more white people that are messed up than Black people.
The only thing I see wrong with white people is that they're weak. They are afraid to be honest with the Black folks and tell them the truth to free them up, free the Blacks up. But other than that, they seem to be okay.
Jesse, they're afraid to be honest, not just with Black people. They're afraid to be honest with themselves. So this is what I mean about everybody's messed up. I don't pick and choose. I'm an equal opportunity hater. I don't just dump on Black people. I shit on everybody. Black, white, Chinese,
you do what?
Everybody. I shit on everybody.
Did you say
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we allowed? We're not allowed to use profanity.
No,
On
that's
this show,
fine.
right? It's a Christian
No,
show.
no.
Okay.
That's fine.
Oh,
No.
okay.
I just
Yeah.
didn't understand what you're saying. So
Okay. Yeah.
back to how all this information going to help them when
Right.
they don't really read, they don't research, they don't really care.
But why are you promulgating that? Because you don't know what people do. You know, I'll give you an example. Last night I was watching an interview with some Black women. I'm not particularly fans of theirs, but one of the women was a female actress by the name of Lisa Ray. She's pretty popular and well known.
Oh, I know who that
And-
is.
Right. But the thing that I was surprised is that during her video, behind her was an incredibly beautiful personal library. And because I don't know her and I've never met her, my assumption is what I see on the surface. And I have to constantly remind myself, until you know someone, you can't say what they do or don't do. So I just try not to judge people until I get to know them. Then when I get to know them, then I can say, well, this is my assessment of them, rather than running around caricaturizing and making generalizations about many people that I don't know.
Well,
I
I'm looking at their
I
action.
can't say what most Black people do
I'm
or
looking
don't
at
do.
their action
Yeah.
over the last, I've been on Earth 72 years now, and over the
Right.
last 60 years or so, Black people have gotten worse. They're followers and not leaders. They're beggars and takers and not workers and givers. And so I see them in action, and I also see how they're being pulled by the so-called upper Blacks and the government and stuff. They're like, but anyway, I want to ask you, what has this Nile Valley movement and all the stuff you mentioned about Egypt done for you personally?
Oh, that's a very good question. I wasn't even sure that you would ask me something like that. Well, the first thing that it did was it afforded me something that you place great value on. It afforded me a different view of. It afforded me a different worldview, so that my mind would not be incarcerated in the mess that you speak to. And I'm not negating that mess exists, but that's what ancient Egypt did for me, the study of it. It availed me to a wider body of knowledge. It put a lot of things on planet Earth in a historical context for me so that I could locate myself in present time and understand my relationship to everything and everything else's relationship to me.